expert results without being an expert. Let's make some skillet flatbread. Hi everyone, and welcome to Fun to Know with Carol. If you're new here, I'm Carolchenot, and I'm so glad you joined us. If you're a returning viewer, thank you especially for joining us again. We have something today that is quick and easy and absolutely delicious every time. It's a skillet flatbread that I find to be one of the most versatile recipes there is. We're going to use these ingredients, and this is all there is, and it's going to take 30 minutes from start to finish, and 20 of those minutes are having it rest on the pastry sheet. I mean, it's so easy that anybody can do it, and I'll show you how. Let's get started. So of course the recipe is in the description box, and the recipe can be doubled. It could be tripled if you want, but I use these proportions because it's just the perfect size for my husband and I. So if you have a family of 2, this is great. It makes 4 skillet flatbreads. However, if you want to use them for, let's say, an individual pizza crust, you might want to roll them out a little bit thinner, and it would make 6 in that case. But we like ours a little bit thicker. The reason it's so versatile is because I use them in winter. It's the perfect accompaniment for something like soup. When you don't want crackers or something that's processed, you will know exactly what's gone into this flatbread. And then in the summer, when we're eating salads, it's again a nice bit of carb that's delicious and makes a perfect accompaniment to salad. So, what we're going to do is combine our dry ingredients. We have 1.25 cups of flour. We have ½ a teaspoon of baking soda and ½ a teaspoon of salt. I need to get some of those little tiny dishes, those little glass dishes for small quantities. And then we're using my favorite little whisk, that's the collapsible whisk that I talked about in a video back at the end of last year. You're just going to want to incorporate all of these together, just whisk them together a little bit. That's all there is to the dry ingredients. Now, one important ingredient that I didn't show you yet is the butter. There's 2 tablespoons of butter. So I've been keeping it cold, and it's in the fridge. What we want to do is cut it into fairly small cubes like this. This is my 2 tablespoons of butter, and we'll put it into the dry ingredients and then really just smash the butter up so that it's supposed to resemble breadcrumbs, of course. But what I've found is that it just takes smashing it between your fingers like that to get it so that there are no huge lumps and it's incorporated well. It takes a couple of minutes to do this. So the butter has all been incorporated into the flour, baking powder, and salt, and those are the dry ingredients. Now this is going to be garlic skillet flatbread, just because it makes it a little bit more aromatic. Can you make this without the garlic? Absolutely. If you wanted to make your flatbreads without the garlic and use them for grilled cheese sandwiches, which is what we did the other night, that's great. So instead of having 6 ingredients, it'll have 5 ingredients. But if you want the garlic version, it's 2 large cloves of garlic, minced, or you can chop them very fine, ½ a cup of water, and you put them in the microwave for about a minute. You want the water to be hot. Now normally when you're doing something with bread, you don't want hot water, you want warm water. But there is no yeast here, and really hot water is what generates the activity that you want, and I'll share with you why I like it so much. So you just add the water directly to your dry ingredients, and then you're going to stir them together. Now, it doesn't take much. You're not beating them or anything like that. You don't need a mixer. Just a simple spoon is fine. So our wet has been added to the dry. It's not perfect. As you can see, there's still some little dry at the bottom of the bowl, but that's quite all right. What we're going to do is put it out on our pastry mat. And you've seen me use this before. I just take some flour and put it in a small container as opposed to having to dip into my large flour container. And I flour my pastry mat. Now, if you don't have a pastry mat, that is perfectly okay. You can do this on your counter and it will turn out just wonderfully as well. So take all the little extra bits, and all there is to kneading this is 3 or 4 kneads, okay? It's not even kneading like this. It's just folding it and turning. So fold once, twice, get some flour in there, 3 times, and 4. It's a very, very soft dough, and the reason I like the hot water is because it just feels like a baby's bottom here. It's warm, and we have a nicely shaped circle here that we are going to divide into 4. So we're dividing this just generally into 4 pieces, and we're going to roll them out. Well, first we're going to put them into balls. So again, I'll flour this a bit so there's a bit less friction. I'm just going to do them into general balls like this. They're about the same size. And once we have them into this shape, we're going to cover them with a tea towel or a light cloth and just let them rest for 20 minutes. That's the biggest part of the whole process, is letting them rest for 20 minutes. While we're waiting during the resting time, let me tell you about the skillet that I'm going to use. You can use any skillet you know that doesn't stick, okay? It can be a non-stick or just one that's very well seasoned. I'm going to show you the skillets that I use almost on a, well, I would say on a daily basis. These are Pampered Chef skillets, and even though this video is not sponsored per se by Pampered Chef, I feel so strongly about them that because they work beautifully every time. So I wanted to share these with you. My friend Lisa gave me some of the details about these skillets. This is the 8-inch. This is the one I'm going to use for our flatbreads. Then there's a 10-inch and a 12-inch. They all come with removable handles. The skillets themselves are safe in the oven up to 480 degrees. The handles are not, so you just slip the handles off and put the skillet in the oven. You can see how deep they are, and they are not your grandma's Teflon, that's for sure, because they have a PFOA-free baked into them, and so everything that you see here is non-rivet. There's nothing to rust. I mean, I've been using these, and especially this one, for probably a couple of years, and it looks just like it did when I first started using it. So this 8-inch is the one that I'm going to use. But if you were going to use these for pizza crust, let's say, an individual pizza, you might want to use something that's more like a 10-inch. All right, I think our dough is about ready, so let's go over and see how that's looking. So our 20 minutes is up, and we checked Facebook, we did the dishes, whatever you want to do in 20 minutes, and we're ready to take one of these balls, leave the other 3 under wraps, and simply pat it down a bit and then roll it out to be, generally speaking, the size of your pan. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, but just about a circular size. Now in our pan, we've kind of tested it to make sure, we've preheated it to make sure that it's hot enough. You want these to go into a hot pan, not just a warm pan. And so I put a little water in and it sizzles, okay? Now you do not need, sizzles. You do not need any kind of spray or oil. I'll show you both, okay? So we'll put this on and push it out to the edges. I was holding it a little long. But I'll set the timer for 2 minutes and then we'll turn it over for 2 minutes on the other side. And I'll show you what it looks like without doing any kind of spray. All right, so this one was a little bit thicker, so I left it in for 2.5 minutes, but let's see how it looks. Just perfect, okay? This is how you want it to look, just golden brown dots on the other side. Now, we'll put this on for 2 minutes as well, maybe 2.5 because it's a little thicker. On the next one, what I'll show you is when you do spray the pan, what you end up, especially if you have some flour on the outside of your flatbread, it tends to take the flour and make it all golden brown. So this is just perfect, but if you'd like to have that golden brown a little more consistently, then you can spray the pan. While this side is cooking, what I do then is go back over to my pastry mat and roll out the next one. So that's what we'll do. We'll just roll it out and let it wait. I'm gonna roll it a little bit thinner than this last one. You wanna make sure that you make it even, that there aren't big holes or gaps in it. So I'm gonna scooch it around, make it more of a circle, and then I'll give it a light roll. Anything dough related you want to treat with a light hand rather than just really pressing down on it. So we'll let it sit there for just a moment, and then as soon as the timer goes, we'll put it over in the pan. All right, and here's the other side. Little dark spots, that's perfect. And we'll put it aside to cook the other 3. Now, as I said, I'll spray the pan just so that you can see what it looks like. Okay, we'll get that nice and hot. And I have made this one a little bit thinner, so it won't take 2.5 minutes, it'll take just 2 minutes. Feel free to scooch the edges out. It's supposed to be imperfect, not a perfect circle. All right, 2 minutes and then we'll flip. Okay, let's turn the second one. All right, and you can see that there's not a lot of difference between the two. It's just that if you did have flour left out on the outside, the spray would help to kind of absorb some of that. So we have our 4 all completed, and they look a little different. Each of them has their own unique personality. This is the first one that we did, pretty small. Then this was the last one. Our family likes to eat them just with butter, but they are absolutely delicious, soft and tender. This one's warm and it's the perfect time to put the butter on. If you've enjoyed this video, why don't you subscribe if you haven't already? Hit the like button, that works well for YouTube, and don't forget to have a great week ahead.